तद्गच्छ ध्रुवभद्रं ते भगवन्तम् अदोक्षजं सर्वभूतात्मभावेन सर्वभूतात्मविग्रहम् तद्गच्छ ध्रुवभद्रं ते भगवन्तम् अदोक्षजं सर्वभूतात्मभावेन सर्वभूतात्मविग्रहम् तद्गच्छ ध्रुवभद्रं ते भगवन्तम् अदोक्षजं सर्वभूतात्मभावेन सर्वभूतात्मविग्रहम् तद्गच्छ ध्रुवभद्रं ते भगवन्तम् अदोक्षजं सर्वभूतात्मभावेन सर्वभूतात्मविग्रहम्. Anybody would like to recite this verse?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji, please.
Can I go through now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Tadgaccha dhruva bhadram te bhagavantam adokshajam sarva bhutatma bhavena sarva bhutatma vigraham. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Anyone else would like to recite this verse?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I am trying.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhu, please.
Tadgaccha dhruva bhadram te bhagavanta madhukshajam sarva bhutatma bhavena sarva bhutatma vigraham. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji, please.
Tadgaccha dhruva bhadram te bhagavantam adokshajam sarva bhutatma bhavena sarva bhutatma vigraham. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, I am trying.
Yes, Mataji, please.
Tadgaccha dhruva bhadram te bhagavantam adhakshajam sarva bhutatma bhavena sarva bhutatma vigraham. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Anyone else would like to recite? Okay. We will do word by word. Tat, therefore. Gaccha, come. Dhruva, dhruva. Bhadram, good fortune. Te, unto you. Bhagwantam, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adokshajam, who is beyond the concepts of material senses. Sarva Bhuta, all living entities. Atma Bhavena, by thinking of them as one. Sarva Bhuta, in all living entities. Atma, the super soul. Vigraham, having form. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. My dear Dhruva, come forward. May the Lord always grace you with good fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond our sensory perception, is the super soul of all living entities, and thus all entities are one without distinction. Therefore, begin rendering service unto the transcendental form of the Lord, who is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada. Here the word Vigraham, having specific form, is very significant, for it indicates that the absolute truth is ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is explained in the Brahma Samhita, Satchidananda Vigraha. He has form, but his form is different from any kind of material form. The living entities are the marginal energy of supreme form. As such, they are not different from the supreme form, but at the same time, they are not equal to the supreme form. Guru Maharaj is advised herein to render service unto the supreme form. That will include service to other individual forms. For example, a tree has a form, and when water is poured on the root of the tree, the other forms, the leaves, twigs, flowers, and fruits, are automatically watered. The Mayavada concept that because the absolute truth is everything, he must be formless is rejected here. Rather, it is confirmed that the absolute truth has form, and yet is all-pervading. Nothing is independent of him. Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjala Shalakaya Chakshurulmilatam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayan Tatati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarchatam Sagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagat Pathe Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Shri Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyadi Paschata Destarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So in this verse, Prabhupada talks about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he has a form, he is not formless. And Prabhupada is completely rejecting the Mayavadi philosophy. So it is very clearly explained that the Lord has form. And we can see in the translation itself, which talks about the transitional form of the Lord. So it is clearly defeated, the Mayavadi philosophy is clearly defeated in the translation itself. So Mayavadi people say that they are God, everybody is God. It is just that they have forgotten their identity. So now what kind of God this is, that they forget that they are God? And they come into illusion, and they also come under the influence of material energy. So this is completely false. One of my relatives, she was a follower of such Mayavadi philosophy. And I met few of the saints there in the past as a child. And I noticed that they always address each other as Om Namo Narayana. They address each other as Narayana because they think that everybody is God. They address each other like that. This is completely false. Prabhupada has explained in multiple places in Bhagavad Gita and everywhere that this is not a right understanding. So let us try to understand that why the Mayavadi philosophers think like this. So it is the very nature of the material world that everything gets contaminated easily. So we can clearly see in the time of Corona that it is very easy to get influence of viruses, and we see a lot of contamination sometimes around, people getting the infections and everything. In the beginning of the coronavirus, right now we are taking a little bit lightly, but in the beginning, when there was more deadlier variants spreading in the world, people used to wash their hands for 20 seconds. They used to even count 1 to 20. They were cleaning their houses with disinfectant, and a lot of hand sanitizer was happening, and a lot of precaution was happening because it was very easy to get some contamination from anywhere else with this virus. So similarly, there can be a lot of contamination in the spiritual philosophy as well, by the way of misinterpreting scriptures. If the understanding of the scripture doesn't come in the line of parampara, as Prabhupada has explained, then it is very much chance that understanding may be incorrect. So there is one interesting story that we see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He was a great logician, but he was in an impersonalistic line. Even he was so famous that when I was studying in India in school times, I saw some reference about him. Because everybody knows about the Chanakya Pandit. Now the Chanakya Pandit is considered the expert in politics science. Similarly, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a similar known figure in terms of logic. So he was very popular. And he met Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. And when he saw Lord Chaitanya, he was amazed to see the Lord Chaitanya, his beauty and everything. And then he felt a lot of Vatsalya Bhav for Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya was very young. Lord Chaitanya was sannyasi. And he noticed that Lord Chaitanya is not interested in the finding a different word understanding of the scriptures as Mayavadi people do. Because Mayavadi usually they try to understand and interpret the Vedanta Sutra in very different ways. And he thought that this is the job of sannyasi, why Lord Chaitanya is not doing it. So out of compassion, he said, I'll teach you the Vedanta Sutra and the explanation of that. So Lord Chaitanya agreed. And for 7 days, continuously from morning to evening, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was explaining the Vedanta Sutra to Lord Chaitanya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was explaining to Lord Chaitanya. It continued for 7 days. And after 7 days, Lord was listening quietly. He was not asking any questions. He was just silently listening. On 8th day, what happened that he asked a question that you are hearing it again and again, but you are very silent. I'm not sure whether you are understanding it or not. Do you have any questions? Just like after the class, people ask that question that, does anybody has any questions? So after 7 days, on the 8th day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked this question that, are you understanding everything? I'm not able to understand because you are very silent. So what is in your mind? So at that point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started speaking and said that I can understand the meaning of each and every verse very clearly, but your explanation is a little bit confusing and it is causing trouble to my mind and it is agitating my mind. So Lord Chaitanya tried to explain him that you are misinterpreting scriptures. Lord Chaitanya continued saying that the meaning of the Vedanta Sutra are itself, in the translation of the words, is itself a clear purport in themselves. But other purports that you are presenting are covering the meaning, just like how cloud covers everything. And then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains that why you are not taking the direct meaning and instead you are trying to find different meanings through your intelligence, which is not there. And Chaitanya continues to explain the Vedanta Sutra is summary of all the Upanishads. Therefore, we should always take direct meaning. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained in multiple places that the Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary of Vedanta Sutra. So we should take this as authority. Similarly, in the Vedanta Sutra, it's like a formulas, Athato Brahma Jigyasa, some words like that. And if you take the direct meaning, then you can understand a lot better. But what Mayavadis try to do is that they try to break each word and try to find different meanings and then try to drive towards impersonal philosophy. So Lord Chaitanya tried to explain him again and again that this is very clear. You just take the direct meaning. Why you are putting your imaginative interpretation in between. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives some example as well. Like conch shells and cow dungs are considered very pure, even though they are bones of the animals, but they are bones and stool of some animal, but they are considered very pure. In Vedic version, it is said that these are pure and we use it. Even a cow dung is used for the abhishek of the deities as well, even though it's a stool of animal. So whatever the Shastra says, if we take the direct meaning, then it is beneficial to us. Otherwise, we will be nowhere. So that's how the Chaitanya continues it and then explains it further to him. And then they keep on discussing this for some time. Lord Chaitanya gives a lot of evidences from scriptures. And then what happens that at some stage, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya thinks that, wow, I have never understood such a explanation of, because he was logician, so he always used to have debates. So he liked this debate with Lord Chaitanya. But because he was habituated in impersonal philosophy, so he was always giving a lot of arguments. And Lord Chaitanya was expert, because he's Krishna himself. He could refute each and every argument that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was presenting. And this has never happened with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, that somebody could explain him in such a wonderful way. And then towards the end, Lord Chaitanya explains a very famous Atma Ramasya Muni verse. And then Sarvabhaumacharya is completely mesmerized. And then he asked, Sarvabhaumacharya asked Lord, that can you please give further explanation of this Atmarama verse? But before Lord continues, Lord says, before I give my explanation of this verse, I want you to explain. What do you understand by this verse? And Sarvabhaumacharya gives 9 different ways of explaining this Atmaram verse. And then Lord Chaitanya Prabhu gives 18 different ways of explaining Atmaram verse. The same after a few minutes after Sarvabhaumacharya is explained. And at that point, Sarvabhaumacharya is completely convinced that Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. And in his mind, he begs for forgiveness. He said, I'm such a fool that I was so clouded by my knowledge and proud that I could not understand this. And at the very moment, Lord Chaitanya, understanding his heart and his humility, gives him a darshan of Vishnu form. Actually, we may be mesmerized that, wow, Lord Chaitanya has given 18 different ways of explaining Atmanam verse. But after some time in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we can see that Lord Chaitanya has given 61 different ways of explaining this Atmaram verse. When he discusses this with Sanatana Goswami. So at that very moment, when Sarvabhaumacharya understands the explanation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on Atmaram verse, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains this, he also quotes various previous acharyas and other shastras while explaining each and everything from the scriptures. And we can see that from Srila Prabhupada as well. Srila Prabhupada always aligns to parampara. He quotes so many things from scriptures. In everything that we see in the verse as well, in the purport itself today we saw. Prabhupada was quoting from Brahma Samhita, Satchidananda Vigraha. And even if you see the purport, there are a lot of things that Prabhupada has quoted. Over the period of time when we study Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand that everything that Prabhupada speaks is from Shastra. So there are a few things which I would like to quote here that Prabhupada has explained. Like, for example, Prabhupada has given an example of tree and water. It is here. For example, a tree has a form, and when the water is poured on the root of the tree, the other forms of leaves, twigs, flower, fruits are all automatically watered. So this is very much there in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is another translation of, in the 4th canto, 31 chapter, in verse 14. Yatha tarur mula nisheshanena, that verse, it clearly gives this explanation that how, when you water the tree, water the root of the tree, everything is nourished. When you give the food to the stomach, entire body is nourished. So this example that Prabhupada many times quotes, it is directly from scriptures. Prabhupada sometimes also quotes 4 defects, why we should not take any meanings ourselves from scriptures. We should always look from a Shastra. So Prabhupada quotes it because we humans have 4 defects. It's like we can get illusioned, we have imperfect senses. All those 4 defects are also coming from scriptures. It is in Adi Lila, 7th chapter and verse 107. Brahma Pramada Vipralipsa Karana Patava. So it is mentioned there in that verse. And many times Prabhupada also explains about a jaundice example, that it's like we may not get a lot of taste in holy name and spiritual matters because we are like a person who has a jaundice. A person who has a jaundice, he cannot taste anything sweet. But the sugar itself is a medication for that person. Now, as he starts taking sugar, eventually his jaundice is cured, and eventually he will start tasting the sweetness of a sugar. The same verse it is there in Nectar of Instruction, verse 7, where it is mentioned, Pitopataptarasya Naruchikanu. So it is mentioned there that the jaundice example given is saying like how a person has a jaundice and he can't taste sweet things. But as he keeps taking a sweet thing, his jaundice is cured. So Prabhupada has explained this very much from Shastra, and this gives us an understanding that we should always try to understand everything from scriptures and from Guru Parampara. So we can say that here the Brahma Samhita is quoted Satchidananda Vigraha. Many people on the spiritual path do not believe in this fact. In fact, many of the religion are based on formless. They focus more on formlessness aspect, that Nirguna Nirakar Swarup. So let us try to understand that why do people don't believe in the form? And they many times Mayavadis put a lot of arguments, and they say that if the Lord is, they believe that Lord is unlimited, and they think that if the Lord is unlimited, then how the Lord can confine into a limited thing like a form? This is their basic argument. So if we want to answer this, we need to think about, we need to come to a conclusion that where everybody agrees. There's a one fundamental definition of the God, which everyone agrees, even Mayavadis, Brahmavadis, everyone agrees. They think that God is source of everything. This is the fundamental definition that everybody agrees. So based on that, we can argue that if God is source of everything, and whatever we see here is coming from God. So if we have a form, if we see form in this material world, then form must exist in spiritual world as well. So the conclusion is that Lord must have something. If the Lord does not have something which what we have, then he is not God, because he is not source of everything. So this is how we can understand that Lord also has a form. So once we conclude that the Lord has a form and there's also formlessness, the question comes that which one is superior? What is superior? So then from Bhagavad Gita, we can see the analogy that Prabhupada gives, sun and sunshine. So sun is there, and from sun, sunshine comes. And we can understand the source of sunshine is sun. We cannot think about the sunshine without the sun. So similarly, we can understand that the personal form is there of the Lord, and from that personal form, the impersonal aspect comes. So Lord, this is how we can understand that Lord has both. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, verse 5, Klesho Diktarastesham, verse that it is very, very difficult. Aviktahi gatir dukkha. It is very difficult for the impersonalist, the people who are focused and attached and to the impersonal features. The path is very, very difficult. I was listening one class by Umila Mataji, which she gave in Auckland Temple in 2009. And because she was mentioning that she had a lot of interactions, she came across many impersonalists, and they had a lot of difficulties. Even after the Kundalini is awakened, they feel they can experience the Brahman, but it was so much that they could not handle themselves. And many of those people went into a mental health issues because they did not know how to handle it. So it is very difficult path because first of all, they need to be in a secluded place. They need to reject a lot of things. They need to be in a secluded place without any contact of anyone else. Just imagine that if we are going to a temple on Sunday feast and you see you can smell as soon as you enter in the Prasadam hall after the program, and you smell a very nice gulab jamun. And very soon you will get that gulab jamun. But imagine that before you go to the Prasadam plate and they say, oh, it was just a smell of gulab jamun. Now gulab jamun finished. It is very difficult feeling, right? So this impersonalist, they can see, and they can sometimes in the world, they can see a lot of things, but they have to restrain them so much. And it is very difficult path that way. And some stage they get lost completely. Even if they achieve something, they cannot manage that because they still have those material desires. So, but in the path of bhakti, it is very easy. Prabhupada says that we can even go back to Godhead by eating gulab jamun prasadam. So it is very easy path for us. We can engage all our senses in Krishna's service. We can sing his glory, we can dance, we can feast, we can chant, we can participate in Harinam, Kirtan, and we can perfect our life. And with Prabhupada's mercy, we can understand how Krishna also looks. Prabhupada has explained us in the Brahma Samhita that Venum Vanantam Arvind Dalayataaksham Barhavatam Samastitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govinam Adi Purusham Tam Bhajami. In this verse, we can understand that how Krishna appears, how Krishna looks. Krishna plays on his flute, how his eyes are like a lotus petal, and his head is bedecked with a peacock feather, and his beauty is tinged with a hue of blue cloud, and he has a charming of millions of cupids. So we have a complete understanding with the mercy of Srila Prabhupada about the personal feature of the Lord. Then how can we get attracted to the impersonal feature? I was also listening to one class by Shrutikirti Prabhu, where he was explaining his experience with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was in a Vrindavan, and he was not very well in terms of his health at that time. And somehow he received an invitation to speak by some sadhus at Kurukshetra. And because the sadhus were planning to build a very big temple in Kurukshetra, and they invited Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was thinking, should I go? Should I not go? He was expressing this thing to various devotees, and Shrutikirti Prabhu was there. And then he said, no, I should go, because it is an opportunity to speak about Krishna. So I must go. So Prabhupada went there. It was a groundbreaking ceremony. They were about to build a very big temple. They were planning to build. And then Srila Prabhupada went there, and he sat there. And all the sadhus, it was happening in Hindi language mostly. So Shrutikirti Prabhu couldn't understand much, but he could understand that the way they are speaking is not from scriptures, because they were not quoting scriptures and they didn't hear a word Krishna. So many sadhus came and spoke for hours and hours, but they didn't hear words of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada was getting a little bit upset with this. And they could see that Srila Prabhupada was getting angry. And after one sadhu finished, Srila Prabhupada stood up, he went to the mic, and he quoted from various shastra and established that we should worship Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he spoke about the Kurukshetra war and connected to Krishna and spoke so many things about Krishna there. And after that, the program finished and Srila Prabhupada went into the car. After Prabhupada's lecture, Prabhupada went into the car. They all went. And Prabhupada was talking to Shrutikirti Prabhu that, could you understand what they were saying? They were all talking nonsense. There was no mention of Krishna. They spoke for so many hours, but they did not speak a word about Krishna. This is all bogus. And then I don't know how their plan is going to work here, because at Kurukshetra, where Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, they are trying to build a temple, but they're not talking about Krishna. So while they were going back, they noticed that the rain started coming, and it was torrential rain. And they could imagine, Shrutikirti was saying that they could imagine that with so much of wind and so much of rain, they could imagine that what would have happened in the pandal there. Definitely pandal would have blown away as well. And all those sadhus would have disappeared from there. So this is what happens when we ignore Krishna. We try to do something on the name of Krishna, but we completely ignore Krishna. And we can understand the Srila Prabhupada, how he got agitated transcendentally when he could see that the people are talking about the place of Krishna and they are trying to build a big temple of Krishna, but there's no place they want to talk about Krishna. So it is not, it doesn't make sense. And in terms of personal feature of the Lord, there's one very interesting story which I remember of Madhavendra Puri. So the Madhavendra Puri was a spiritual master of Ishwar Puri, who was a spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Madhavendra Puri was a monk, and he was visiting Vrindavan, and he was near a Govinda Kund. The Govinda Kund is a place where Indra performed the Abhishek of Lord Shri Krishna, and that water became a Kund. Yes, the Govinda Kund. So near Govinda Kund, Madhavendra Puri was performing, he was doing his bhajan. And Madhavendra Puri was such a renounced monk that he never begged for any food from anyone. If somebody offered him some prasadam, he will take it, otherwise he'll fast. So he did not eat anything for that day. So towards the late in the evening, one cowherd boy comes to him and said that I was just playing here, and some of the gopis who was working here in the farm, they noticed that you have not had anything since morning. So they have given me this milk to give it to you. Please have it. In my village, no one fast, no one remains hungry. Because this is Vrindavan, this is Raj, no one remains hungry here. So Madhavendra Puri was amazed with this little boy. And this boy said that, okay, you finish your milk, and after some time, I need to look after my cows. I'll come back and take this pot from you. So Madhavendra Puri drank this milk. But Madhavendra Puri noticed that when this boy was near him, he was feeling a lot of emotions for Krishna. And then he drank a milk, the boy didn't come, so he just slept there. And in his dream, the very same boy came. And he said, he revealed himself that he is Krishna. And his deities is buried in the ground here somewhere. It's Gopal's deities. It is buried somewhere in the ground, and he's feeling a lot of heat. He needs to be covered out. So when Madhavendra Puri wakes up, he understands this dream and he laments that, oh, why he couldn't have more association of Krishna. He was feeling separation from Krishna. But nevertheless, the Krishna gave him some service. So he talks to some Rajvasis there. He gathers them and goes to the place where in the forest with a lot of thorns around, and they remove everything and they try to remove the earth and then try to find the deities. And as they dig in the same very place which was indicated to Madhavendra Puri in his dreams, the Gopalji's deity comes. And it becomes a very big celebration as the Gopalji's deity comes. They have a very big festival. They abhishek. They do a lot of abhishek of the deities with so much water, cold water, because the Lord said that I'm feeling a lot of heat. And then they cook various varieties of feast actually there. A lot of food preparation brings. It was a big festival there. And they install Madhavendra Puri installs deity of Gopal there. And then he also gets two devotees as a dedicated worship to the Gopalji there. When Madhavendra Puri sleeps there again the Gopalji comes in his dreams and said, I'm still feeling a lot of heat because I have been in the earth for so many years now. Now, this was a deity which was installed by Krishna's grandson about 5,000 years ago. So a very potent deity, and revealing his heart to his pure devotee, Madhavendra Puri. And he says that you go to Jagannath Puri and get a sandalwood for me. So Madhavendra Puri wakes up, decides to go to Puri. Now, this was a very difficult at that time, because at that time, there was no mode of transportation that you can buy a flight ticket or train ticket, go to Jagannath Puri and get something from there. You need to travel through a very dark forest where some wild animals are there. There's a fear of dacoits. But still, just to do the service, Madhavendra Puri decided to go. And on the way to Puri, he comes to a place called Remuna, where there was a famous temple of Gopinath who was there. So when he had a darshan there of Gopinath, he notices that a very elaborate and very nice worship was happening of Gopinath. And they were offering Gopinath a kheer, sweet rice preparation in the evening every time. And they used to make it in 12 different earthen pots and used to offer. So Madhavendra Puri thinks in his mind that, wow, this is such a nice level of worship is happening here. I wish I can, when the Bhoga was happening, he thinks that in his mind, oh, I wish I can learn how to make this kheer, so I can offer it to the Gopalji's deity there in Vrindavan. And while he thinks about this, and then he goes back to his room, then he sleeps there. But after the Bhoga offering is finished, when the Pandit Pujari goes there, he only finds 11 pots there, instead of one pot was missing. And when the Pujari goes back to sleep, Gopinath comes in his dreams and says that I have kept one earthen pot behind my deities, and you go and find this Madhavendra Puri and give him this. So Pujari, seeing the dream of the Lord, he just immediately wakes up, rushes to the altar, and finds the earthen pot hidden by Gopinath, and goes and he finds the Madhavendra Puri and gives him this. And very soon this news goes around the town, because at that time in the town and villages, even though there was no WhatsApp, no technology, but the news spread very fast because the community was very closely connected. So seeing this thing, Madhavendra Puri feels very ashamed that he's getting a lot of respect, and he's a simple monk. He wanted to live very simply. So he said, now I cannot stay here anymore. And he moves from that place and goes to the Jagannath Puri. But before he reaches Jagannath Puri, his fame reaches before him. And people start giving him a lot of respect, and they start worshipping him there. It was very uncomfortable for Madhavendra Puri to accept all of that. But just because he had to do his service and he had to stay in Jagannath Puri, he was accepting those things. So he finished all the paperwork, because at that time there were different states and different kind of countries within India, and they had different rules. So they had to do a lot of paperwork if you want to transfer some item from there, because he was taking a big chunk of sandalwood from Jagannath Puri. So he finished all the paperwork. So here we can see that even the Madhavendra Puri was a renounced monk, but he was still doing a lot of paperwork. And he was doing a lot of transactions in terms of buying the sandalwood pulp and so many things. Many times people say that sannyasis should not engage into all this material affairs, but it can be done for the service of Krishna. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada has built so many temples, and he was doing administration of so many things. And sometimes we see sannyasis traveling and engaging in this service. So it is okay, because they are still doing it for Lord service. Anything and everything that we can do for spreading the message of Krishna consciousness is always okay. So then he completes all the paperwork, and he goes back to starts traveling towards Vrindavan. And on the way back, he stops over at Ramuna, the very same place where Gopinath is there. And he takes rest there. And on his dreams, the Gopalji comes again, and he says that my heat is disappeared now. I have accepted your sandalwood pulp. Now, whatever the sandalwood pulp is there in front of you, you can just smear on Gopinath deities, and then you can come back. So I'll stop here for this story at least, because I will continue on saying this more. So we can understand from this story that the Lord is a personal feature. Lord has a personal feature, and Lord can reciprocate just like another person. We can see the loving exchange of Gopinath and Gopalji with the Madhavendra Puri. See, if our intentions are very pure, then definitely the Lord will reciprocate. And many of the devotees, I have talked to so many devotees, that they also get reciprocation by deities and the spiritual masters, and in a spiritual and transcendental way. When I was there for the 50th anniversary of Radha Girdhari, so many devotees express their relations with the deities. It was always understand that this not only happened or many years ago with Madhavendra Puri, but it still happens with the devotees around us in our Radha Girdhari temple. So I would like to stop here. And if anybody has any questions or comments or corrections.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan Pranam.
Yeah, you started with a very good example of, COVID. Yes. This reminds us, how important it is. Our local examples, but that gives an impact of understanding the subject matter very well. Yes. Thank you so much. And then you have explained the personal form. How do we understand with respect to the scripture against their understanding of the Mayavadi philosophers? It's very clear. Thank you so much. You've given such a good example of Gopal and Gopinath, and Madhavendra Puri. That reminds us to understand the subject in a right perspective through the Shastra, not understanding through our own personal conception, that where we get binded up. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and knowledge to understand this verse. Text 5 very well. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Parjanya Prabhu. Thank you very much for a very nice explanation of the personal and Mayavadi philosophy. Prabhu, what is the difference between impersonal and Mayavadi philosophy? Yeah.
Usually there's 2-3 terms are used here. And there is Mayavadi, which is I've heard in one lecture. The Brahmavadi people are there, they believe in the Supreme Brahman. So they're a little bit better because they accept some aspect of the Supreme Lord, because Supreme Lord has 3 features: the Paramatma, the Brahman, and the personal feature. So they accept something of the Supreme. But Mayavadis are those people, they think that everything is illusion. We all are God. I am God, you are God. So that is completely a Mayavadi philosophy. They try to, their basic philosophy is based on their gyanis basically, and they try to read the scriptures, try to interpret it differently, and through speculations and by negating a lot of things, they try to come to the state of self-realization. This is my understanding, but if anybody would like to add anything to that.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Very nice explanation. Prabhu, also you mentioned about Purimala Mataji giving this explanation of the Brahmavadis. They come to the state of Brahman realization, but they have a lot of difficulty. They have like mental issues, and you give an example of how what is the difficulty, because something is beyond them, and they are not able to grasp it. So in this current Kali Yuga, it is very difficult, but still there are a lot of people, especially in India, who are trying to be like yogis to realize the impersonal Brahman, or they cannot handle it. So yeah, Prabhupada came and demolished all these misconceptions. Such a nice philosophy. Thank you for pointing this out, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Pranam. Just I have one question. That Madhavendra Puri got that Gopal. This is that in now Srinath ji.
Yes, Srinath ji, that's the very same deity.
Same, okay.
It was transferred to that place when the Muslim again invaded Vrindavan.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. The point you have told about the Mayavadi philosophies, sorry, that they think of that the Lord has no form. In other words, as you have mentioned also, that if the Lord has no form and all of us have got form, that then Lord is inferior than us, isn't he? That is one of the immediate corollary on that, and that's why their argument that Lord has no form is not acceptable. And you have rightly pointed out, just as we have got material form, Lord has got a transcendental form.
That's right, bro.
And also the Mayavadis also tell that the other thing is that the individual who when in this material world or anywhere, we are under the influence of Maya. So the Lord also, whenever he comes here, I mean the Krishna, in other words, when Krishna came here, they told that is under the cover of the Maya. He is also affected by Maya. But the very simple logic is that if Krishna is under the influence of Maya, there is no importance of Krishna at all. Then Maya is more influenced than Lord himself, and it's such a silly argument.
Yes, very true.
And also in this matter, I just want to refer this one thing, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told that we should not accept the Mayavadi, and one should not read the Mayavadi philosophy because if we read it, even the interpretation of Shankaracharya, who is in fact the proponent of Mayavad in the recent times, if we read him, we'll fail to understand the importance of Krishna, and it will be a mistake on our part, and we'll miss our Krishna prayer, which is the basis of our Lord Chaitanya's philosophy, that the aim of life is to get the Krishna prayer. But if we rely on the Shankaracharya Bhashya, then we will not achieve that. So we should reject it all from the beginning itself.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you for adding that very nice comment, Prabhu. Definitely, we should not kill Mayavadi philosophy. It can culprit our mind actually, and spoil our intelligence as well in whatever we have.
It came to my mind that in verse 9 of Ishopanishad, it is mentioned that whoever is in ignorance, that they cannot reach the goal, but even they will go to the even darker things, who are knowledgeable, but they are misdirected. If I can remember the memory, from my memory, the verse is like that: Andham tama pravishyanti ye avidyam upashate tato bhuaivote tamo yoyo vidyamrata. So-called knowledge, which is even dangerous in one sense, because that prevents a person to go to the right path. Even who is ignorant, he can learn from a knowledgeable person, but who is ignorant, who is evil educated, in other words, you can say wrongly educated, he can spoil everything, because it is difficult for him to come out of that and come to the path of right knowledge. So we should be very careful and avoid them from the beginning. And those of us who find them, when we interact them, unless we are very knowledgeable, we should keep ourselves away from them. But if we are knowledgeable, we can defend ourselves and prove our point against them. But if we are not knowledgeable enough, those of us, we should not go to them at all. That is the precaution we should take from our side. Thank you, Prabhuji, for that.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for adding the comment. Thank you. And sharing that the words from Nectar of Instruction as well. Anybody else have any comments?
We still got a few minutes. Anyone would like to have some comment, reflection, realization to share? Yes, if not, we'll end the class here. Parjanya Prabhu, thank you very much for coming this morning, giving a very wonderful explanation of this verse. Thank you very much. And thank you all the devotees for the input, such nice discussion. Thank you very much. This guy is Parjanya Prabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.